Julian Meyer. You're watching Own Your Wellness, and I am excited about today's guest. We have been wanting to have this conversation for quite some time now, and because of my scheduling issues, thank goodness he's patient with me. We are finally having this conversation. He's an amazing soul, and I'm so lucky that we get to have him here today. Julian Hayes II, welcome to the show.
It is great to be here, Julianne. I am so happy to be here. So happy to have this conversation. The intro is inspiring. I'm ready to jump up. Definitely not do any burpees because I'm not a fan of burpees. So I'm just excited to be here.
Thank you. Neither am I. I'm not a fan of burpees, but I am excited to be here. So, you and I have a lot in common, and we definitely resonate on a bunch of different levels, but the rest of the audience isn't necessarily familiar with you yet. And I would love for you to share, in your own words, obviously, a bit about yourself and your wellness journey.
Yeah, I like to say that curiosity has kind of been my North Star, and it still is to this day. And just not to go too far into the past, but a little bit is important when I think about health and I think about paradigms. And that's a big thing when it comes to our health. And for me, my initial paradigm was seeing that when you get to 30, things start going downhill from there. And it sounds crazy, but that's what I saw. I saw a lot of people start to fall apart, had grandfathers, aunts who had a lot of chronic health struggles. You know, for me, I didn't eat my first salad or anything like that until I was 20. Luckily, I had genetics to help me with basketball, but I ate a 20-piece chicken nugget, supersized fry, and a giant sweet tea before games and everything.
Wow. And you still did well. That's impressive.
Unfortunately, I think about the times that if I didn't do that stuff and I did other things, what would have happened? But that's neither here or there. And one pivotal moment while playing basketball, just during the summer, there was an older gentleman who was running up the court with us kids. And he was, this was shocking to me. And I had to talk to him afterward. And some of the advice he gave was very basic. And just like any normal 16, 17-year-old, you're like, whatever. But what he did there was he planted seeds in me, whether he knew it or not. I actually ran into him maybe a month or so ago. And he planted seeds in me. And that started my journey of wellness. Now, initially, it starts, as most men, I can say, it's a very superficial journey. We want to have muscles. We want to try to impress women and everything. But over the course of time, this morphs and changes. Now, this led me to medical school for a year. And during that time when I was in New York City, so many serendipitous moments happening. And I really feel like, not to sound too crazy, that something in my soul was starting to yell more and more and more and more that, hey, man, this ain't it. This ain't it. This ain't it. And it's just going to keep yelling until you're like, okay, I hear you. And so I stopped, didn't go to medical school. And then I just been on this journey of figuring out what's my space, what do I want to do? And recently I've been talking to friends and even business partners of like, what do I want to go on a run for the next decade plus? And so it's all about health optimization, but more importantly, it's about people really seeing themselves as the CEO of their health and life.
I like that. Same thing like with the title of the show, Own Your Wellness, like being in charge of yourself, being your own advocate. I'm all about anything. And plus being an entrepreneur, I like when people use words like CEO. It makes sense to me. But I really want to touch on the thing that you said was like maybe a little weird to say, with the whole idea, like your soul's like saying, this isn't it. Mm-hmm. Everybody has had that experience at some point in their life. And if we normalize it a little bit, then maybe people would start listening more and actually maybe change the direction of their life. And the fact that you were willing to do that, I just, props to you, because that is not easy. Once you start on a path, it's like, I'm on it.
And I tell you that the thing that's also tough, and probably listeners notice as well, as when you start getting validation for the thing that you're doing, it's really hard to go away from that. So for me, I'm first generation. I'm already the golden child when you get an undergraduate degree and minors and stuff. And then you go to medical school, I'm going to be the king now. I'm going to get crowned. I am literally everyone's favorite. Oh, this is my nephew, cousin, everybody's bragging on me. Yep. And then to go against that a year later to say, no, I'm not going to do that. And then to, just to find different jobs. You're like, oh, I'm working at a gym, and then I'm also working at a call center. So you go from being the prince to people are like, what is this guy doing? And so it's a very weird thing that goes through there. But it's a lot of lessons in managing your ego as well.
This isn't exactly where I expected us to go in the very beginning of our conversation. However, I think it is really important because, and I'll tell you real quick, one of my business partners, he says that, when you're doing something new and you're an entrepreneur, people will call you crazy. They'll think that you're absolutely insane. But once you're successful, then they'll ask you how you did it. So it's up to you. Do you want to stay crazy and quit? Like quit and stay crazy in their mind? Or just continue doing what you planned on doing. And then at some point they'll be like, oh, okay, now I get it. So how are you able to manage your mind in those times when it would have been easier technically to just keep on that path and be the favorite, because it's so much more, it's a nice place to be.
I mean, who doesn't like praise? I mean, I'm an only child, so I love praise already as an only child. You're used to being the center of the universe. Now, for me, it's almost like a TV show. If you think about some of our favorite TV shows, the first few seasons, you're going to have that same cast of people. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, they changed the whole cast around for season 4 of this TV show. And that's essentially what I kind of had to do with myself. Now, you had some recurring characters that were there at season 1. Those are some of my day one friends that accepted Julian no matter what. But then you had some people that you maybe just not get rid of, but maybe they're just not a regular on this series. Now they're just going to appear for an episode or 2. And so how we can translate that is these are people that I can't give too much energy to right now. I can't give too much exposure to them right now because I'm like a little baby. This thing I want to do, this journey I want to take, it's very fragile right now. And I have to really manage it, be careful with it. So so I guarded my energy. And then I also started to build up a different supporting network of what I needed in that moment. I went to therapy for a little bit just to kind of center me, get me thinking right. And then exercise is always there, but it was really a daily focus on my mindset and really thinking far out that don't get caught up in this moment right now. Think about where you're going to be down the line and what you're building.
I like that because it keeps it easier to move forward instead of getting stuck in what the current circumstances are. And I think a lot of us do that in so many different ways. I mean, especially when you think about health and wellness, there's very rarely a really quick, huge win. It takes some time to, I don't know, maybe lessen some symptoms depending on where you are in the wellness journey. But I don't know. To me, I just think that managing your mind is so important. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Now, how do people feel about you now in your life? Are you to a place where they're like, okay, I see you, or is it still kind of like some people get it, some people don't?
You see it a little bit, but still, they need to really visually see it. And so not yet, but I think the difference is it's really the way I carry myself. I'm much more confident. I'm very comfortable in my energy now. So you almost force people to kind of get in line. I don't know any other way to say it. They just get in line because a lot of it is really how we see ourselves is a lot of times like a mirror, how the world's going to see us. And so if I am filled with insecurity inside and telling myself, I'm probably going to project that even subconsciously to the outside world. So the more I worked on myself, the better that the world is going to be projected because the lens through which I'm seeing the world now is much different than what it was at the very beginning.
I really love that because it really is a perception and we're always telling ourselves a story anyway. So why not tell one that suits where we're trying to go and what we're trying to accomplish? Now, the reason why I asked you that question, just for those that are watching and also maybe even you to understand, is because anytime you grow and change, there will always be people. It's not ever going to be easy. There's always going to be people, no matter where you are. Like even last year, my dad said to me, and I'm successful. And he said, would you have considered getting a real job? And now he doesn't say that. But I mean, even up to a year ago, and I'm 46. So, it took a long time for me to get there. So you really do have to manage that, aspect and be okay and know who you are while you're growing and changing. Now, I know that you do a lot of coaching and a lot of in speaking as well. What what is the main thing that you want people to know and understand about themselves when they're working with you?
Yeah, I really like to. I would have answered this question differently, probably even a year ago now. But the more and more I go about this thing, the more and more I see it's a mental game. And really, I want people just to accept themselves for who they are and unapologetically.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times some of our health issues comes from just a inner conflict, and a lot of times it's even subconscious.
Yes.
And really just accept who you are. And because when you do that, you're going to be able to have these two worlds that a lot of times we struggle with our health world, with our professional and other world. And these
Mm-hmm.
things are always just butting heads. And when you finally find a way and accept yourself, and you have these things just symbiotically just cohese and merge as one, things just get so much easier from there. But it sounds easy, but it's not, because a lot of times you have to audit yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that stuff is difficult. And it's easier to say, hey, can I, what's some biohacks I can do, or what's some peptides I can do, and things like that. And I love those things. I am such a geek for those things. But, life works in sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And those things are later down the sequence. And you can't skip steps, because if not, we're eventually, there's a saying that we rise to the level of our standards during hard times. And this is the same thing here in this world, that if we don't have this standard of inside and our internal game there, at some point when adversity strikes, we're going to revert back to this default, no matter how many tools that we have available for us.
You know, wow. I've never heard it put that way before, and I really, really like that. But I just want to point out too that, you know, we live in a microwave society. We want everything right now. And like you said, the biohacks, the let me just do this and let me fix this symptom, but not really getting to the root thing. And sometimes it's really simple, not necessarily easy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I realize this because I'm kind of the opposite way. And it's funny that I get to talk with a lot of business people, and
Mhm.
and now they're transitioning to the health world, and I'm the opposite. And so, but it's parallels though, because when you tell me that, oh, it's going to take consistency, discipline with your health, I'm like, well, yeah, of course. But if you think
Mhm.
about certain things business wise, you like, and I'm thinking sometimes I want it now. And you're like, why do
Mhm.
you want that? Usually there's something you're trying to project. There's somebody you're trying to prove wrong, which is fine. But a lot of that time, though, what are you sacrificing in that moment? Is that going to lead you to making certain decisions in the short term that can potentially lead to long-term agony, long-term things that you do not want? And so that's why I'm very adamant now on really learning yourself and really accepting yourself and knowing why you want certain things. I know we say find your why and all those things. And a lot of times when we say find our why, the first answer is not your true why.
No.
Yeah, some people are like, hey, I want to impact the world, or I want to feel healthy. Well, why do you want to do that thing? And it's okay to say, hey, I want to feel useful. I want to feel seen. There's nothing wrong
Mhm.
with that. We are humans. There's
Yeah.
absolutely nothing wrong with that. And when you can admit that thing, I'm telling you, it's going to be a breath of fresh air. You're just going to feel like this 800-pound thing that's on your shoulders is just going to be let off.
Training people to be like, oh, I want to live a long life or whatever. I'm like, no, girl, you want to fit into that dress that you wore back when you were 19 years old. Just be honest. There's nothing wrong with that, because what does that actually mean? What does that stand for? It's a symbol of what that stands for you.
Mhm.
You know?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, very few people are just want like very. I didn't want just broad shoulders, just to have broad shoulders, just because I love the anatomy of the shoulders and how they function. No, I wanted to present a certain um, image, but then also there's a feeling, more importantly, that comes along with that I equate it to that. And the
Mhm.
reason why you want to find that feeling is because therefore that's going to help you be consistent and disciplined. Because so when those moments of adversity, when those moments of obstacles come, what you can do now is you can tap into that and tap into that feeling and think about, man, what's this going to feel like when I accomplish this thing? What's this going to feel like if I keep doing this? Because now you're getting emotion
Mhm.
and not just logic. And that's a powerful combination.
Yes, thank you. You're so speaking my language. People always think about like the mental part of it, but never like the emotion. What is that? Like the more senses you can use, like your
Mm-hmm.
brain doesn't know the difference between reality and not. So like,
Yes.
the person that practices piano in their brain does just as well as the person that actually practices on the piano. So, it just like to be able to do that, it's so much more powerful being able to use all of it. So I'm so glad you brought that up. My question for you, and I don't always ask this of everyone, but since you are in this sphere of like whole being improvement, like not that there's anything that needs to be improved upon perfection, but like if you want to live a different life or like experience life in a different way, you have to change your habits and how you show up in the world, that sort of thing. I'm curious, what is your thoughts on like a morning routine, or do you have like certain things that you do every day to like prime your brain, or what is that like for you?
Yeah, so a couple things I do is I have a recording of like my statement of who I am. I have like my winner's declaration to get myself going every day, because I'm not normally what I would say is just a high super confident person, right? I had to really work and build on that, and
Mm-hmm.
I and so that's the thing I'm always guarding against. And so I have this recording usually every 3 hours or so. It's a reminder that goes off, and so for 2 minutes I'll say some type of statement just to build myself up and pump myself up. One of the best lessons my mentor gave me was, don't beat yourself down, build yourself up.
Mm.
And so that's something I constantly do. So, and he's like, Julian, you're fantastic at the physical gym and building your body, but you're mentally and spiritually weak. You never go into the spiritual gym, and until you start going to the spiritual gym to build your muscles in there,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get what you want out here. And so I took that to heart. So I do a lot of work in there, and I'm going to continue to do more. And I know I need it more because I'm like, I don't have time just to sit. I don't want to just sit and do this. I want to go run or punch something or slam some weights. I want to do that. I don't want to just sit here and be
Uh-huh.
and be quiet. But a lot of our best insights come from silence. So that's definitely something I do. I like to move my body every day in some sort of capacity. Um, and then I also like to at least read for like an hour a day.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a combination of that, and it's not even always things related in my industry, but it's things that maybe could be useful that I can
Mm-hmm.
bring into the work I do. So I would say moving your body, studying, educating yourself every day, and attending the spiritual gym is probably three things right there. I could probably think of a few more, but for simplicity's sake, those are three ones that I think are universal, applicable to everyone.
I love that. I'm always talking about, because I focus way more on nutrition versus the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is, what are you feeding your brain? What are you feeding your soul? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we already know that you need to feed your body a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? So I love that you brought that up, because most people aren't even aware of how mean that they are to themselves.
Yeah.
you
And,
know?
and the funny thing is, there's a fine line between, you know, motivating yourself, challenging yourself, and then you can easily veer into that line of, hey, this is getting kind of toxic. And I don't even like using the word toxic because a lot of people use that. But like, I thought about myself. I said some fairly harsh things to myself. It's one thing to keep yourself accountable and everything, but
Mhm.
oh man, like some of the things we said to ourselves, I wouldn't even say to the most competitive of my friends because there's just horrible things. So I think that's a good filter that we can have is like, would you ever in any circumstance say these things to some of your friends, even if you wanted to motivate them? And if the answer is no, then uh, that's probably not a good thing to say a lot of times. Or if you are going to say something negative, then at least counter it with 2 to 3 positive things to build it back. So it's almost like, I imagine you're at the job and it's time for feedback, and you're going to tell the person, well, you can improve on this and this and that. Normally, you're not going to leave it at that because the person is going to walk out, the shoulders down, slumping and feeling dejected. So normally, if you're going to have something that's maybe not so good to say, then you can at least come back and swing the pendulum back in a more positive direction by adding 2 to 3 things.
Exactly. You don't want to leave on that sour note. I mean, it just ruins that relationship too. And I think that that's a really good way. Like, if you think about having a relationship with yourself, are you nurturing that, or are you hurting it? Are you being your own worst bully? And, that's like an entire conversation. But we do need to go to a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk to you a little bit more about, and I want you to think about this, like, actually, everybody has some sort of a pivotal moment that everything sort of changed for them, and it could be really small or even big. It just depends on who it is. I'm just curious what yours was or is, or what you're hoping to happen. So think about that. When we come back, you're going to answer. We'll be back in just a minute. Oh, maybe run now. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Julian Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and today's amazing guest is Julian Hayes II. Welcome back to the show.
Happy to be here. Ready to get back with it.
Yeah, I love that. So, before the commercial break, I was talking to you about like pivotal moments, and I'm just curious what's like one was for you, because we all have them, and sometimes we can only see them in retrospect. But I'm just, I always like to talk about that a little bit so that people don't feel like maybe alone, or they're like, oh, that happened too, and that kind of thing. So, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ones, but I would say one of the more recent ones is probably it has to do with identity and how you see yourself. And for the longest of times, and I was thinking, man, I don't see what other people see. When people would say, man, Julian's this capable person, and all these bright and glowing things about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost felt a little uncomfortable. I'm like, are you sure? Some people may say that's a bit of the imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it. And I thought about, man, why don't I see myself this way? And one of the reasons, and I thought about this, was because being near my hometown for a little bit right now, there's a lot of people who don't see Julian that other people see right now. They still see Julian, little Julian, or the young adult Julian. And so there was this disconnect, and I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, I'm seeing myself through the filter that they see me in, not who I see myself as, and not even who everybody else in the world sees me as. They say these things, and I don't believe these things. Why don't I believe these things? And I thought about, who am I listening to?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a pivotal thing for me to catch that and realize that I'm seeing myself through the lens that some of the people from the old season 1 and season 2 that we talked about earlier see myself. And so these are reruns. These are not even new seasons yet. And so I need to realize that. And so it's a very small shift, but it was necessary for me, because it gave me the confidence to start even doing things like this more, speaking on camera, because I was super afraid to do these things now. I was because I always said, oh, I'm an introvert and I don't got nothing to say, or I don't like my voice, all these little things. And these are such old material that had no relevance right now. And these are things that no one ever said about me, except people from season 1 and season 2. And so you just have to nip that in the bud. So I bring all that together. So for listeners and thinking about this, is that if you sense a disconnect, you sense a resistance in doing something right now, and there's a big one when it comes to our health. One of the hardest things with your health is having people respect the new you. Like, no, I'm not going to eat these foods no more. No, I'm not staying out to midnight. Look, it was a struggle at the very beginning when I said, all of a sudden I came back from college and said, I'm just not going to eat these foods. Oh, you think you're too good for our foods now? No, these are not, you used to eat these foods. What are you going to do now? So you had all these things, right? Oh, you're too good to go out and stay out. Oh, I'm just going to go to bed at 10. Oh, you're too good to hang out this late now. All these things, right? This low key peer pressuring, right? And so if you see that, just remember that these are things from the old season, and remember that you're in a different season of your TV show or movie or whatever you want to be. And also you're building for future seasons as well. And so you think about the direction and the quality that you want that to be.
I like that idea too, because a lot of people, there's people in my life that I'm like, I can't believe you know how to drive. And I'm like, they're 45 years old, of course you know how to drive, but I've known them since we were 5. So, in my mind, it's like still odd. So I totally appreciate what you're saying. It's like, some of them are still shocked at who I've become. And to me, it's like, nah, okay. That you've missed so many iterations of me, even in between, that I don't get that. So I like this idea of paying attention to who's saying what.
And I will add one other thing with that to go against that, because some people say, well, I can't exactly change everything in my environment just this very moment. Well, you can do is just be quiet. And what I mean by that is, don't share your goals with everyone. Don't share, move in silence.
Exactly.
Move in silence, or move with very few people knowing, and highly curated people knowing, whether that's a mentor, a coach, or a close peer or friend. They can know, but someone 100% certainty that it's going to be constructive and beneficial for them to know. Other than that, stay absolutely silent. Like, a lot of people, like, somebody asked my mom, what does your son do? She's like, I don't know. He's like an entrepreneur or something. And I have a purpose because I don't want people placing doubt in her head or fear or nothing like that, right? So we're just going to let this pan out. And then over time, it's like a campaign. You're just going to slowly drip things out when they need. Or they'll find out what you do when you're done doing that particular. But everyone does not need to know your goals. You do not need to announce it on the internet, social media, or nothing. I am a proponent of moving in silence.
Amen to that. Something that I came from the addiction world. So that's where I used to work. And it's like, one of the things that they talk about in meetings and stuff is like, you're as sick as your secrets, so that you should be able to share your stories. And while that is true, not everyone has earned the right to hear your story. Absolutely. That's why they have meetings in rooms, so that you can be with like-minded people who are not going to shame you when you tell the most embarrassing, humiliating thing you've ever done. They're going to go, oh yeah, me too, So then you feel like you can let that go. But if you went out and told somebody else, they might be like, oh, that's not going to do anything for you. So I love this idea of being very precise about who you share what to. It's like, are you asking for advice or counsel? Because, counsel is very different from somebody's opinion.
Because I saw myself at times, and I was like, I'm sharing something, but I'm sharing something because I'm hoping for you to give me validation and certainty
Uh-huh.
on the move I'm about to make, or I'm hoping you talk me out of it or find something wrong with it. But my intuition and my gut tells me I already know what I need to do. Just like when I decided to leave school after that, I thought about telling people, but I knew what the right decision was because I didn't want to look 20 years down the line. And one of the worst poisons you can have is regret. I
Mm-hmm.
wish I did this. I should have did this. And then sometimes people blame others for not doing that thing that they should have done. And it's just a horrible thing. And I didn't want to have that. And so therefore in that moment, I just kept it to myself and trusted my own gut. And
Mm-hmm.
because I knew what the answer was going to be with everybody else, because they're going to just look from it from a fear standpoint. If you think about a lot of times, even with our health right now, you can ask someone, are you running away from something or are you running towards something? And so for me, when I first started off with health, I was running away from something. I saw
Mm-hmm.
chronic illness, chronic disease in my family. I was running away from that. But as we all know, when you are in a fear state and that is what's driving you, you always can be controlled. You're not truly totally free yet. Whereas it's
Mm-hmm.
much more empowering when you're running towards something. I'm running toward what I like to say is total sovereignty over my health. It's not just the absence of the disease and illness, it's the absence of limitations on how I can experience life. And you compare and contrast those two things, which one sounds much more invigorating just from an energetic standpoint that you feel different? And it's going to be the one that you're running towards something.
Yes, exactly. And plus, when you think about it, well, words matter. It really does matter how you say things, but also you get what you focus on. So if you are like fear based,
Mm-hmm.
you are going to create more of that energy in your life, whether or not you realize it. I think that a lot of us, myself included, I've caught myself multiple times realizing, oh, I'm doing this because I'm trying to avoid. It doesn't even matter what it is, like
Mm-hmm.
health, money stuff, work, family, you name it. I'm trying to avoid it. And then it's like, okay, let me just reframe it. I have the best intentions. It's not even like a bad goal, but just to reframe it into like, okay, instead of thinking about what I don't want, what do I want?
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I saw this growing up, and that's why that's it's top of mind. Is that I'm so tired of being sick. I'm tired of being sick. I'm tired of feeling bad.
Yes.
You're just affirming that. You just
Yes.
keep. It's hard to explain that to someone that's not. And I had to give up eventually at some point. But to hear that and say I'm tired of being this, you're literally stating what you are, calling
Mm-hmm.
more into it. Literally calling more into it, and so that's a easy health hack that is free and will never be advertised because you cannot scale this. You cannot you cannot
Monetize.
you cannot monetize it, right? But literally speaking and being careful with the words that come out of your mouth. Because if you think about it, these are thoughts and these are feelings, and then these usually turn inputs that we're going to get out in the world.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. It's so fascinating to me how it all ends up working because like we were saying before, it's really simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy. It takes a lot of like really paying attention in that moment and catching yourself. We do this stuff all the time. We're on autopilot way more than we think we are. Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but there's been times I've driven past my exit and not even realized, or just gone straight home without paying. And like, how did I get here? Because I'm so busy somewhere else. I'm not even really where I am at
Yeah.
that moment.
I thought about when I've run a lot sometimes, and there's been things going on the side. Somebody's like, "Hey, did you see that traffic accident?" Or "Did you see the neighbor's dog and all this stuff going on?" I was like, "No, I didn't notice anything." They're like, "You ran by the accident?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I didn't notice it because it's so. This is the same route I normally take, the same time, the same amount of distance, and so it's just on autopilot. And we've gotten so it's conscious competence, something like that, and we've gotten so good at it. Same thing with driving, like you said. Um, I've definitely done that. I've missed exits, or I'm driving somewhere and I'm so used to going this way to a certain place that
Hmm.
even though I know I'm going somewhere else, I end up turning down this road of where I normally go.
I've so done that. Oh my goodness. It's funny that, you're talking about this because my very first coach, I paid what I thought was a fortune at the time. $4,000. And
Mm-hmm.
like back then I was on salary. So that was a lot of money because, you know, all
Mm-hmm.
my pennies, I live in California. It is expensive to live here. But one of the things that I loved about him was he spent 14 years in a monastery.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they would do is walk the exact same way every single day to the same thing. And the goal was to notice something new and different every time. Something, whether it was beautiful, like it would be a different thing that they were supposed to notice each time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like just really being present for that same little walk that they would go on. I thought that was, I mean, it's kind of fascinating how much our brain will fight that too, like just trying to pay attention.
Yeah, our brain is sophisticated. It's a great survival tool. It wants to keep us comfortable. So if you think about it, this is why it's hard sometimes to change with our health habits, with our relationship habits, life habits in general, even when we know it's the thing that we need to do and that we want to do. It's because it's so easy to negotiate with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You think about this, you just need to send that email. You really need to send that email for that opportunity. And you're like, well, I don't know, it's 3:30. They probably won't do it today. I'll wait till 8 o'clock. And then you're thinking about, well, it's the weekend. They're probably not going to be in. Then it's Tuesday. Well, I don't know. They just came back from a holiday, so maybe I'll just wait till tomorrow. And so you can always keep finding excuses to never do the thing.
And like you said, it's even something that you want. You genuinely want it, but it's like you can't. Yeah, and like you said, it's our brain. It's the way it's wired. So it's interesting when you know that, and then you stop shaming yourself for that. You can figure out different ways to work with yourself in order to overcome those natural tendencies that we all have. I love that. So of everything that you, because I know that you do a lot of executive work, what is the most common thing that you see that people struggle with in that world?
Yeah, structure with their health, and it's a very weird phenomenon because it's a structured when with their professional and professional life, and you can throw entrepreneurs in there as well. You can throw entrepreneurs in there. To me, they're all the same. Titles are different. A few things are different, right? But to me, most people typically have the same type of problem. One of those is structure, it's a simple disconnect. If you think of yourself as a business, that's going to be one huge problem solved. And this is what I mean by that. If we have a business, or even if you're in your career, you're not going to be neglected. There's certain appointments, there's certain meetings that you're going to go to. It's a priority. It's on the schedule. You're going to nurture it. You start growing your business, you're probably going to learn to delegate. You're probably going to find support and assistance for it. But you have reasons why, like, why is this business important? Why do I want to grow in my career? Well, I have a family to feed. I want to do X and X and X. So you just created stakes. You just created why it's a necessity that you do this thing. And so it's urgent. It's a priority. And so when we think about our health, we tend not to do that for a lot of reasons. And one of those is because in health, the lever is not going to move that fast. I can be completely sedentary for 2 weeks and I'm not going to notice really anything. Might be a little lethargic because I know my body real well, but in terms of visual appearance, biomarkers and all that, nothing's going to change that drastically in 2 weeks unless I just completely gorge and eat just crap throughout the time. So, and if I do this for the whole year, maybe I'll gain a couple of pounds in a total net. Still not a big deal. But then I do it another year. Maybe you start to feel something different. And then definitely if I do it the next year, totally then, because things start to change. The dress that a girl wanted to get in can't get in. The suit, his favorite suit, he can't get in. He doesn't feel right in it. Those kind of things. His energy, things are harder to do than what they used to be. So now it's a problem. It's never a problem until it is a problem.
Yeah.
And so to combat that, to go against that, is to create stakes. Why is this important? Think of your body, think of your health as a business. And so we're motivated by a lot of different things. Some people are intrinsically motivated. So if you need to, we can tap into that dark side a little bit. Think about this from a competitive standpoint. This can be a competitive edge. You think about your competition, they're slowing down, and you need resilience. You need stamina in business to win. Health is going to help with that. Some people, especially the newer parents that have little kids, they always say it changes them. when you have those little ones. It changes you. It makes you start thinking about your mortality a lot. It makes you start thinking about you want to be able to play with them in 10 years and see grandkids and stuff like that. If that's the case, really channel into that, sit in that. And so what I do is say, hey, think about some activities you like to do now at, say, 40. If you like to ski, you like to do all those things. And then I want to fast forward to when you're 85, 90 years old. What do you want to be doing then? Well, hopefully I want to see my grandkids. Do you just want to see your grandkids, or do you want to participate and play around with them? That's two totally different things, right? So that's a change there. Do you still want to be active? Yes. What are you doing? How does it feel? How do you look? How's the environment around you? So we're really painting a very vivid picture of of what health looks like, because being healthy, optimal health looks different for all of us. What I think is optimal health is probably different than probably my cousin, because we want to do different things with our life. But we get really clear on what race we want to run.
I like that.
And now we can start bringing in the tactics. So essentially what we're doing is you do a lot of preliminary work at the beginning. You're slowing down, you're accumulating data, and now you can speed up. And then also now you are also not going to have so many roadblocks because you already thought about some of these things. And so, so that's why I love health data, but it needs to be used in the right sequence. It needs to be used in the right context here. And so that's usually the thing. Now and that's a deeper reason. You can always point to, they eat, their nutrition's not good, they don't exercise enough. Those are surface level. There's an underlying reason why those things are not happening.
Exactly. No, I love that. It's true, because in something that I realized that for me worked, because I still would struggle with some of those issues, was like, how much am I loving myself today? Because would I feed my baby this, or would I feed a child? No, then probably I wouldn't want to be eating that myself either. So, but we do need to go to one more commercial break. When we come back, I really want to talk about this idea of progress versus perfection and how to move forward when we have our setbacks. So we'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, I'm Julian Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and today's awesome guest is Julian Hayes II. Welcome back. I guess it should be like, there we go. It's always opposite. So during the commercial break, I was thinking a little bit about this idea of progress, not perfection, and how, we can create these. Let me back this up. What I really love about what you said before the commercial break was like doing the groundwork. and figuring out, like, not just the surface stuff, but figuring things out so that you have an understanding of why you're doing what you're doing when you're doing it. It's a lot more powerful that way when it's not just surface. I mean, anything is, but there's always going to be times when we fall off the wagon or we make choices we didn't want to, that sort of thing. What are your thoughts on that? And like, some people have certain tips and tricks that they do, like not 2 days in a row, or your next meal's better, or whatever the case may be. But I'm curious what your thoughts are about, like, how you deal with that mentally.
Yeah, mentally, I'm not a huge fan of baseball, but there is a very good thing in baseball that I really appreciate, and it's that you can be a Hall of Famer batting a little over 300%. Or actually, let me rephrase that. 3 out of 10 times going up to the plate. And you can get a base hit out of those times. And that's your batting average. You're probably going to be a Hall of Famer. So that means those guys go up there 7 times, strike out, get out, and Hall of Famer from that. And so you put that in perspective. And if you think about from a business perspective, you see a lot of companies. What we see today is not nearly what they were originally when they first started coming out. It's like 10 or 15, 20 iterations. And health-wise, what you thought was going to be the way for you to get to your ideal weight, your ideal health, most likely will not be that. And there's a quote Jeff Bezos said, and I believe he says when he talks about Amazon at the beginning, he's like, we are stubborn on the vision, but malleable on the details.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. And a lot of times this is harder for us to see because we see what's in the light, but we don't really see how things are made in the dark. So even like if you think about a movie, or even you think about this show here right now, people are going to be able to see this, what we're doing right now, but they're not going to get to see all the things that you do on the back end when it comes to scheduling, post-production, pre-production, technical mishaps. They don't get to see all of that, building the audience, getting this out there. They just get to see this part, which is fine. But that doesn't give us an entire big picture of it. And so I bring all this and culminate it is that what we think we see as perfection and a great final finished product is really just a series of edits and a bunch of twists and turns that have been nicely put together to give that illusion. That when we go to the movies and see that 2 hour and 30-minute movie, we don't see a lot of things that are left out. There's probably 3.5 to 4 hours worth of material, but only 2.5 of it made it there. That great memorable line that we see in our favorite romantic comedy or our favorite drama, they probably rehearsed that hundreds of times, and then they still messed up, and they had to do it again and do retake after retake after retake, and now it looks perfect. So anytime you think that somebody's having perfection, I want you to really, really, really think of this. It is all an illusion. No one has it together. I've gotten to interview a lot of people, and I come in there thinking, man, they're gonna, everything's put together. They're living the dream life, and then we get to talking, and they're like, oh, they got problems too. They got problems too. They got bigger problems. There's always an illusion, and so give yourself some grace with that, because really, when you're thinking I need to be perfect, that's a great way of procrastinating, and that's really what that is. It's not that I really want to fine tune this product, or I really want to make sure this is the perfect workout plan, the perfect meal plan for me. It's really I'm procrastinating to get started because there's some hesitation or there's some fear or doubt that is addressed, and this is a better way of saying that.
I like that because one, what's that saying? Like a 20-year overnight success. Like people think it's just like that little section, like you said. So I love that. But it's true, because as you grow and change into that person that needs to be who they need to be in order to achieve whatever goal it is, the way you get there is absolutely going to change, whether it's business, whether it's wellness, whether it's your relationships. I mean, it does not matter. it's like you said, it's never going to look, you just need enough to get going. And the other steps they'll figure themselves out as you keep moving.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's one of my purposes, or what I say is the purpose of life, is simply life is just about constant growth and evolution. It's just as simple as that. Everything's evolving and growing and changing. The more we try to resist with that, usually the more annoyances, frustration that we're going to get. And things are still not going to change and on our end, but they're still going to change out in the world. So it's just a part of life of accepting and surrendering.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing you say too is because a lot of people like surrender. I'm not. Well, no, that just basically means like this is what it is, and I'll do what I can with what actually is, instead of denying what is really happening.
Yeah. Well, usually when you hear surrender, because I had that thing as well. It's like, what do you mean you want me to surrender? I'm not surrendering. I'm a fighter.
Yep.
And so when you do that, really you're having a resistance. And that's the thing. There's a great book. I forgot the author's name. It's called Letting Go. And there's another book by the same authors, and it's Power versus Force. And they talk about these kind of things.
Oh, I'm reading Power versus Force right now. That's so funny. That's so funny. Yes.
Yeah. So those types of concepts in there are in there. And so, because usually when you start to surrender, now you can actually allow yourself to receive these things that you actually want.
Exactly. That's kind of like, that resistance. It's you become blind to options and opportunities and things that are in front of you because you really can't even see it for what it is. So yeah, of course things are going to become more stagnant. Now I really like that. We are running low on time. I've been, popping up your website and your YouTube and, and mentioning that you do coaching and speaking, but your website's the best way to reach out to you, I assume?
Yep. The website will be the best way. It's the easiest way.
Perfect. I just want to make sure we said that before we got to the very, very end. And obviously for anybody, we'll have all this information in the show notes too, but, I'm curious because we only have like 3 minutes left. What are if you could give one piece of advice to yourself when you were younger, what would that have been? And then also anything else that you want to leave with the audience.
Yeah, it all ties together. It's my friend was one of my friends is a rapper. I think he's retired now, but he's a rapper. And so you're always get a lot of good quibs and bars as they call it. And so one of his things was do it for the intention, not the attention.
Ooh. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. It's funny that you would say that because just yesterday I was talking to somebody and they were talking about how there's so many people behind the scenes, and that do you want the attention or do you want the money? Because we were talking business, but it was interesting. Like, what is the actual purpose behind what you're doing?
Absolutely.
It all comes back down to, like you were saying before, like, are you okay in yourself? Because if you are strong in your own beliefs and that you're on your own right path, you don't need that external validation from other people. It's nice to get, don't get me, I've never turned it down, but somebody very sure, I don't know if you know who he is, he's considered the ambassador of joy. And his dad used to say to him, and I love this, I don't know where it came from, but if you let compliments go to your head, you let insults and complaints go to your heart.
Yeah, there was a football player in the same thing. I think it was Sean Payton, and I think the Saints were undefeated that year. They're like 12-0 or something, and he said, "Don't eat the cheese." And so basically, don't believe your hype. So neither way. So don't believe you're as good as you are, and don't believe you're as bad as. Don't believe you're as good as people say you are, or as you're bad as people say you are, and just stay neutral. That's kind of how I think of it.
Exactly. Not better, not worse. Just you're magnificent, you. Perfectly imperfect. Well, that is pretty much all the time that we have for today. We do have about a minute left. Where are you located? Just out of curiosity.
The great state of Tennessee, in Nashville.
Ah, Nashville music. I love it. And so are you willing to travel to speak as well?
Absolutely. Any excuse I can get on an airplane, I'll do it.
Amen to that, as long as it's not, super cheap. Although I'm flying to Denver in a week, and my tickets were round trip $95. I'm like, hey, I'll take
Oh yeah,
it.
that's good. That's good.
But anyway, that really is all the time that we have for today. Once again, Julian, it's so weird to say almost the same name as mine. It has been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad that we finally had the opportunity to have this conversation. And thank you so much. And guys, reach out if you have any questions, and you can reach out to me. I will definitely put you in touch with Julian as well. So everyone, that is all the time we have for today. We'll see you again next week on the 3rd.